The Lazarus Effect. I went to see this with my younger brother earlier this year. My dad and I have this strategy where my little brother and my little sister want to go see a movie, but they don't want to see the same movie. And this is quite common. So, what we'll do is I'll take my brother to see one movie, and my dad will go with my sister to her choice. It works pretty well. This is one that my brother and I saw together, and although we don't have the same range of favorite movies, I'm more of a natural science, dinosaurs fan, and my brother is more of a military apocalypse fan. But we do seem to have the same point of view on horror films. That being, we both like horror films, but we find the majority of them too long and not very scary, or gory just to be gory. You know, sick without any real suspense to them. Or the suspense falls apart pretty quickly. This, however, is effectively a truly scary horror film. At first, it's very similar to the Frankenstein idea. There's this team of scientists who invent a serum that when a subject is dead or near death, they inject the serum into the temporal lobe of the brain to, what they say is to prolong the period in which a creature can safely be brought back from that brink, from the threshold between alive and dead, with, as they say, no cognitive loss, no long-term effects, restore them as they once were. They describe the moment. Some of the scientists have different points of view than the others about death. One of them describes the moment of death as the brain being flooded with psychedelic compound, which, put into simple words, psychedelic is a compound that alters cognition and perception. So they describe death as being a gigantic trip. There's a little bit of the question of the existence of a soul, where the soul goes when it leaves the body. They don't talk about it much more than that. It's just brought up. The possibility that what goes on in the brain, the neural activity, is energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. The law, familiar law of physics. And so maybe the personality, or the soul, does survive in some way. We just don't know. That's true. We don't ultimately know. But address it, the energy can neither be created nor destroyed, wouldn't necessarily mean that the energy is still part of you. The first experiment they do is on a dog, and they do bring the dog back to life, and the scientists, they watch the dog for a while. The dog seems fine at first, but soon starts to show a loss of appetite for dog food and aggression that seems almost predatory. He's more like a dog zombie now. What happens is the company that's funding the research, that's in control of the research, finds out what they've been doing and comes down to shut down the experiment. They violated some rule or another. So the team realizes they're going to lose all their research, and if the company decides to keep the research, they're going to keep it all to themselves. So they decide to replicate the experiment to prove it was theirs. And one of the main characters one of the women is electrocuted. Well, predictably, they decide to shock her brain with the serum, and she comes back to life. But she comes back wrong. She has an experience that's tied to a traumatic event from her childhood while she's in the brink, in the limbo between life and death. And it's revealed that she's had nightmares about this for many, many years, ever since it took place. She describes her time being dead as reliving this experience over and over and over again, unable to escape. And this being her hell. And she's had a very different perception of time that the others have had, whereas she was gone for a very short amount of time, she sees it as being gone for years. She begins to develop psychic powers and is able to show this vision to her friends. And she becomes more and more paranoid of them. She's able to hear what her friends are saying, are thinking, and she can project her mind to them. At the same time, she's also growing more powerful and violent by the minute. So, what began as a plot similar to Frankenstein becomes more of a person who had this near-death, otherworldly experience developing supernatural or psychic powers, and becomes another being altogether. She's kind of a zombie and kind of a demon at the same time. I'm not sure she's exactly a demon, and the hell aspect, well, while revisited, doesn't really seem to be resolved at the end. It doesn't sound all that different from plots or movies you've encountered before, but I think it's far more effectively scary than most, for two main reasons. The first is that it's short. This movie is less than 90 minutes long, less than an hour and a half. Horror movies or suspense movies, when they stretch past 2 hours and longer than that, most of them become either repetitive in their strategy, or they just become tiring, or trying to drag out the suspense so long that you're not on the edge anymore. I think that by keeping this movie short and to the point, it keeps its suspense superiorly to many. It's one of the very few horror films that actually ever made me jump. The second reason is that it doesn't try to do too much with the plot. It's all about the coming back wrong aspect of being brought back from the dead, which there's a lot of truth to. I've been through a near-death experience myself, and it's very, it's actually very upsetting to come back from that kind of state. It's terrifying, and for a long time you don't know if you're even alive or dead. I may talk about this more some other time. There's also the dead girl's confronting of the visions that have been haunting her throughout her life. And that's about it. It's not the most unpredictable horror movie or unfolding of events there is, but you're always not quite sure how what you can see coming is going to go down. And there's another thing this movie gets right. Oh, that's another thing this movie gets right. It keeps you on edge as to what's going to happen in the next few seconds throughout the entire movie. And that's, again, where the short length really helps. I think a lot of horror films should learn from that, because most of them are way too long, and often what they're trying to do to scare you becomes old. You get a little too used to it. Anyway, I think this is an excellent movie. If you're, visiting friends and you want a very real scare, but one that's not going to keep you up all night, keep you from going home all night, or a scare in those couple hours before bed, I really like this.